Good afternoon, everyone. Sorry for the delay, and I'm sure that everyone has taken your lunch already. So please don't fall asleep while representing it, and please kindly switch off your phone or put it in silent mode, because this masterpiece in front of you, where we spend our blood, sweat, and tears together to produce it and present it to you. Well, our topic today is on intercultural communication, and we choose Daimler and Chrysler merge as our case study for our today's presentation. Before I start, let me introduce myself and my fellow teammates. First of all, my name is Goh Siu Chia, and you can call me Winford, followed by Guo Song, Shatish, Sujeta, and last but not least, Li Jing. As you can see on this slide is our content of our presentation, and I'll be covering on the introduction, profile of these two companies, and their motive for their merge. Without further ado, I'll start my introduction. Daimler-Benz and Chrysler. In the global level, they are one of the famous merge in the 1998, but then ended in failure. This shows that cultural factors are simply cannot be ignored, especially within M&A, which is also known as mergers and acquisition. As you can see that today's economy has become more and more affected by the continuously rising globalization, hence more and more cross-border M&A can be observed. In the late 90s, the world car industry faces a number of challenging problems. And with the slogan of what we cannot accomplish alone, we will then accomplish together. Hence, Daimler-Benz and Chrysler Corporation were decided to merge in 1998. As you can see on this slide, this is a profile of Daimler-Benz. Daimler-Benz was a well-known German car manufacturing in 1926. Daimler-Benz was a well-established company in the European car industry, especially in Germany. The name of the Daimler-Benz stands for car or luxury sectors. With the high work intensity throughout the production process, it did not allow Daimler-Benz to become competitive in the hardcore US market. Hence, Daimler-Benz market share was less than 1% in the US market. On the other hand, Chrysler Corporation was a well-established company in the US market. Chrysler succeeded in producing model cars that responded to the American demand. In 1997, Chrysler Corporation has a market share of equals to 23% in the US market. However, Chrysler Corporation has faced bankruptcy 4 times before since the end of World War II. But Chrysler has a very high efficiency throughout the production process and low cost in the product design and development. As a result, Chrysler Corporation was considered the world's most profitable car manufacturer in the midst of 90. Next is the motive for their merge. Daimler-Benz at that time intends to strengthen its position in the US market and hope for gaining a significant competitive advantage for the future. And on the other hand, sorry, that's not for the technical problem. And on the other hand, Chrysler Corporation intend to gain competence in the product technology and quality, and also to extend its international reach. However, both of them share a very ambitious goal by expecting a huge saving in combining purchasing and other operations, and also hope that the cost of the research and development can be reduced as a result of this merge. Now I pass my turn to Guo Song to continue his part. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Winford. So now we have some basic knowledge about the background of these two companies. Now it's time to look at the challenges that led to failure of the merger. I will talk about the culture difference between these two companies first. To look at the culture difference between these two companies, we'll have to look at the difference between two countries behind. The United States of America is a country mainly consists of immigrants, which means they have a diverse culture and they are more tolerant to the difference and new things. American people gained their independence after the revolution. They got rid of the colonial rule by British and established a new country. That's why they have a pioneering spirit. Initially, there were only 13 states in the United States of America, and they gradually expanded to the current size by conquering the neighboring lands. So the country is competitive. American people focus more on themselves rather than others or their companies. They are more of individualism rather than collectivism. On the other hand, Germany is a traditional European country. They are more realistic and pragmatic. When dealing with things, they are more cautious and do not want to make mistakes. Due to the cultural difference between these two countries, the companies from these two countries may have varied business culture. Companies from Germany usually establish some rules and protocols, then just follow. But US companies, they are more creative. They welcome innovative ideas. People from German companies usually avoid risks. They do not want to make mistakes. On the other hand, people from American companies, they dare to make mistakes and they learn from their failure. When making a plan, German companies usually make a very detailed plan and their plan is precisely implemented, while American companies usually make a rough plan to try out, to see if anything goes wrong, then adjust their plan. When in terms of decision making, German companies are more centralized. What's from their managers is much more powerful than what's from their lower level employee, while the power distance in American company is much more smaller. To be more specific about these two particular companies, we can look at their organizational model. In Daimler, they have a top-down structure, while the management style for Chrysler is more flat. In meetings, Daimler have very long reports and very time-consuming discussions. But Chrysler usually minimize their paperwork and keep their meetings short to save time. In Daimler, we can find authority and bureaucracy, while Chrysler is famous for their efficiency. In terms of pay disparity, payment in Daimler is much more evenly distributed, while executives in Chrysler may receive higher salary than other employees. So now we can see that these two companies are totally different, but they still wanted to merge, so problems may occur. Before the merger was initially considered a merger of equals, as neither of them want to take control of each other. They just want to cooperate for mutual benefit. However, things did not go as planned. Now let's welcome my partner Satish to continue.
Thank you, Gosong. Now I shall cover two models which will briefly explain the Daimler-Chrysler merger in greater detail. The first model is known as Horsford's model of cultural dimension. This model consists of 5 main areas: power distance, masculinity and femininity, uncertainty avoidance, individualism, and long-term orientation. Based on the model, this model shows the background of each country and how they do businesses in their own country. This model is used to gauge how well two companies of any background can merge together to form a merger for long term. But in this case, it shows that for America and Germany, the gap is very wide for the areas of individualism as well as uncertainty index. This shows that this merger may not last in the long term. The next model we're looking at is the SWOT analysis. SWOT stands for strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. For the strengths, both companies are two strong players in the automobile industry, Chrysler being the biggest player in the US and Daimler-Benz being the biggest player in Europe itself. And both companies are frontlines of innovation. However, their weakness was that both companies have two extreme cultural and management styles. The opportunities, however, they were willing to forego them for the opportunities for improvement in technological skills and quality of products. However, the main fault line will lie when both companies do not share a common corporate identity. This will be the biggest fault line in this merger itself. Both companies have different goals and values. The need for high quality products and competitive prices drove each company's parties towards against each other. Employees were reluctant to work and were reluctant to cooperate and work with one another. Both of them had different mindsets and different ways of approaching their business. Management actions to ease merger concerns. As this was a new company, two different parties, funds were spent on cultural sensitive workshops so as to ease tensions between both sides. Not only that, the companies agreed to keep their original models intact so as to ensure that efficiency is not affected. However, the workshops did not help in alleviating tensions. Instead, it made it worse. Employees couldn't see eye to eye on certain matters, and this led to the merger's downfall. Secondly, a German in the Over time, a German replaced the American as the merger's president, as the company's president itself. Germans, being more dominative as compared to Americans, who are more creative, felt that some of the employees felt that Germans' dominance was too strong for them. This led to one division breaking away and resulting in mistrust and mayhem along the company line itself. Before the merger was even in place, Jürgen Schramm, the CEO of Daimler-Benz then, and Bob Eaton, the CEO of Chrysler, did not follow a coordinated course of action. There was no proper communication between the top two-level management. This led to the subordinates and the employees to feel left out and unaware of what's happening. This was a quote mentioned by Jürgen Schramm after the signing of the merger. The merger equals were necessary to earn the support of Chrysler's workers and the American public, but it was never reality. Initially, they mentioned this was a merger of equals. That means they saw each party as equal. But over time, it was clearly evident that the merger was not equal in any sense. America's Chrysler's creative flair was diminished under Germany's dominant nature. This resulted in the Chrysler division breaking away from the company and going to no man's land. As Chrysler was divided from the company, the entire company itself was going into the red. In 1998, the market share price of Chrysler division went from $108 to $40 in a single year itself. This shows how bad the management was in place. Now I shall pass on to Suchitra, who shall cover the next part as well.
Thank you, Satish. Hello everyone, I'm Sucheta and I'll be talking about the issues need to be addressed for a successful cross-cultural merger and also the lessons we have learned from this. So, Daimler and Chrysler merger, a marriage made in heaven goes to hell due to wrong management decisions and also culture clashes. Not only this, 70% of cross-cultural mergers and acquisitions end up in a failure. But why is that so? Well, the CEOs of Fortune 500 companies tell us that this is due to post-deal people problems. We have identified that apart from the people problems, even culture and communication tend to be more challenging when different cultures are involved. So, in order to be successful, apart from looking at just the mere numbers of profits from the merger, companies also need to give importance to culture, communication, and people as well. To do this, they need to assess the cultures before the merger, diagnose the risks that are involved, and also develop a culture integration plan to bridge these differences before the merger itself. Now let's understand how to address these cultural issues. Before that, what is culture? Culture is the way we do things. But for companies, it means management styles, the decision planning styles, the languages we use, the attitudes to planning. All these extremely differed from Chrysler and Daimler. But it was supposed to be a merger of equals where one culture was not supposed to be imposed onto other. But what to do if the cultures are very different? Well, the solution to this is to blend cultures so that it can be shared by everyone. Yes, that's right. You need to bring up a third culture by reconciling the weaknesses and combining the strengths so that this third culture, which is shared commonly by everyone, is much more stronger than the individual cultures itself. Finally, in this way, people can also have a common identity for themselves in this newly integrated organization. Next, let us look at addressing communication issues. Communication is extremely important so that the manager lets the employees know the intentions behind the merger, the vision, the culture they're going to approach after the merger. In all the decisions they make, all these need to be reflected. The communication needs to be open and clear so that there are no misinterpretations. We also need to use various channels and methods so that you can engage employees to the maximum. Different cultures may have different communication styles, so you need to ensure that there is no mistrust or concern, not only among employees but also your stakeholders and clients as well. Lastly, the last ingredient in our success recipe is people. People during the merger generally feel very conscious about their future. Management needs to engage them, inspire them, motivate them in this newly integrated workforce. They need to create an atmosphere where there is respect to other cultures, trust, and also there is enthusiasm. Most importantly, what they need to do is to develop a robust training program so that employees can be open and sensitive to different cultures. They need to develop that competence in staff so that they can cooperate with the other cultures in the organization and work towards a common goal through partnership. So that's how we think that the companies need to address culture, communication, and people issues for an increased success rate for cross-cultural M&As. And let's not forget and look at cultural diversity as a positive new ways of doing things rather than a subject of clash. That's it for my part. Li Jing will now cover the rest for you all. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sachita. Sachita presents us the issues that need to be addressed for a successful merger. There are actually quite a lot of successful cases in financial service industry, in heavy industry, in like faster consuming industry, and as well as car manufacturing industry. All of these cases have leading to a successful future, benefiting for both sides of the company as well as the market. Now let's take a look into Tata JLR case. Tata is one of the largest private company in India and was founded almost 150 years ago. In 1945, Tata Motor was established. For Jaguar Land Rover, their ownership had been transferred for several times, and in 2008, Ford wanted to sell them together for its own survival, and Tata was the buyer. At that time, people didn't see the bright future for it. They thought Tata was making an expensive mistake. However, Tata had successfully acquired two other UK companies before, and take the advantage of it. Tata made the right actions to secure the success. Now let's analyze them in three aspects, as Sachita has discussed: cultural, communication, and people. In cultural aspect, Tata respect and intend to preserve the culture of JLR. At the start of the process, the managing director openly stated that change of the ownership has little to do with the changing of the culture. So the operation practice were kept, and the people didn't feel too much difference to adopt to. As for the communication, Tata keep an open mind. The top level managers often make the trips to the factories and dealerships in UK and collected the feedback from the local employees. Those opinions were being used to developing the company's strategy. And for the people, Tata decided to keep the existing managing structure intact and retain the national British manager. Moreover, Tata managed to motivate them through consistently challenging them and working with them, so that those managers will be adult because they have goals to achieve and plans to implement. All the over three aspects make the acquisition to JLR to be a success. Now I hope you guys are okay so far, because I'm going to come into the conclusion. We have discussed about the failure of the merger between Daimler and Chrysler. They faced the problem from the different cultures and communication, but they didn't take it as a very serious problem. And after the merger, they didn't take efficient solution to solve it. Then finally caused the failure. That's why the cultural difference is one of the most important factors for two companies to do the merger and acquisition. As we can see from the successful cases, if two sides of the merger did focus on the culture and communication, for most of the time, it will lead to a success. And for us, who are going to graduating and will start to work very soon, from this case study, we understand the importance of the culture and communication. When we're working in very new environments, we should to adapt to it, respect it, and learn from the team, the division, and the company. Besides, if the company that we work went for a merger or acquisition, we shouldn't be panicked or reluctant to accept the new part. Just keep an open mind, respect the new part of the company, and try to learn from it. Thank you very much for